Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project Copyrighted Edition for our video channel. We're here with Huck, the executive producer and the demanding dog of the show. Huck's a good girl. She just got brushed. She feels all nice. She's all pretty. Time to take a nap after that brush, huh? Huh? Yeah? She's a good girl. Oh, she's so happy. Yes, a good girl. Yes, a good girl. Yes, a good girl. Yes, a good boy. Oh, that's a good girl. Yeah. Okay, so you hang out there, and I'm going to talk. And you know what? You just love it when I talk. Ha, ha, ha. All right, friends. We've got an unusual one for you today. One story, one man, Alaska. Yeah, one story, one man. Before I get into that, a lot of you have taken me up on what I'm going to offer right now. And that is you buy 2 Missing 411 books from our site, and I will throw in for free our Liberty hat with the flag, with our website. Throw it in for free. 2 Missing 411 books from our site. And our site is NA, like North America, nabigfootsearch.com. Go down to the online store. Just order 2 of the books. Don't have to do anything else. Pay for the postage, and it'll go out. And just a reminder for the people that are new, we ship everything usually the next business day. Usually. It's very rare when we don't. And we ship everything by priority mail. USPS priority mail. And the right now, effective this last year, we do not ship to Canada or any other international locations. If you want to ship and you live somewhere internationally, you go to Hancock House Publishers. Hancock House Publishers. Just Google it. You go there, under the search bar at the top, you search under Missing 411 and all my books will come up. They'll ship anywhere in the world. And they're good international partners of mine, and they can save you a lot of money on shipping that I can't save you. Now, this case, I got to give you a little background on it. And the background sets up for what happens, because it's a phenomenal story. Denali National Park in Alaska. This is where it happened at. First human habitation of the area was 11,000 years ago, and there aren't a lot of archaeological remnants. And you think, how tough those people must have been to be in that area 11,000 years ago. You think about it. The entire park is larger than the state of New Jersey. Yeah. Denali means great one or high one. Denali used to be called Mount McKinley National Park, with Mount McKinley being the highest point in North America. Now it's Denali. But you know what? The highest peak in North America doesn't even rank in the top 100 for all of the peaks in the Himalayas. Yeah, true. The park says that 32,000 people over the years have attempted to summit Denali with a 50% success rate. I'm going to tell you from somebody who's climbed a few peaks. You do not want to attempt to climb Denali without a professional guide. I really don't care how good you are, because every mountain has its hazards. Every one, and they're all different. And you may think you know, but until you've been on that mountain hundreds of times, you just don't know. And I'm including some of the mountains here in North America. Rainier's another one that's can be very dangerous. And there are professional guides that'll take you to the top. So, getting back to it. The park is noted as a great place to observe the aurora borealis. Now, my park Glacier National Park, I think, is the pristine place in the lower 48 to see the aurora. And we've had it out here several times since I've been here. And there is nothing, and I'm being serious about this, in natural observation, just going out into the wild and viewing things naturally, I do not believe there's anything more beautiful than the aurora up at Lake McDonald. I'm going to show you a picture. It's a picture I took, and this is Lake McDonald down in here. And the white spots are stars. And this is the aurora off the lake with the mountains in the background. And I'm telling you, once you see it, you will never forget it. And one night I was there, I think it was 21 degrees. I was freezing my tush off, but I couldn't leave. It was too beautiful. So, just to let you know. Now, remember what I've stated is that a lot of people disappear in areas with a lot of water. This is one of those areas. Park has over 12,000 lakes and ponds. And many of the areas that we're going to talk about, there's just lakes and ponds scattered everywhere. Now, the next part to understand is flying in Alaska. They have 9,428 active pilot licenses in Alaska, with 8,668 registered aircraft, and 232 FAA owned and operated weather cameras in the state. You can get on them and look. 763 registered landing areas, public and private. The state of Alaska is 663,000 square miles. Huge. And the coastline is 6,640 miles. Now, I want you to look up this on your own because it has nothing really to do, I believe, with what we're talking about today. But they've made some television shows have made a big deal out of the Alaska Triangle. And they say, 20,000 people have disappeared in the Alaska Triangle. I have a huge problem with that. And in fact, when I was asked to be on that show as an expert, I wouldn't do it because they wanted me to say things I couldn't stand behind. Namely, they couldn't justify that number. And it's, once one show says it, everybody says it, and it becomes meaningless. And it truly is a meaningless number. But per the FAA, Federal Aviation Agency, Alaska averages between 9 and 12 fatal plane crashes annually. And that's 5.4% of all USA plane fatalities every year. Even though Alaska has less than 1% of the population of the United States. What can account for some of this? Pilot inexperience, treacherous weather, and oftentimes pilots are landing in areas they've never landed in before. Riverbanks, gravel riverbanks, glaciers, sides of mountains. I could go on and on. And then pilots have something called the rush mentality. A lot of these guys and ladies need to make money. The plane is their air taxi. And in an effort to make money, even though the weather may say it's not good to go, we're going to go. Let's go. I learned this from my dad when we had a plane when I was young. It wasn't a great plane, but it got us around. And he'd always say, hey, if the weather's bad, we're not leaving. We'll camp on the side of the plane if we have to, but we're not leaving. There's not a rush to go anywhere, not a rush to lose your life. Now, here we get on to some more meaningful parts of this story that will blow your mind. Now, I knew many years ago of a good friend named Linda Moulton Howe. I've known Linda for a long time. I put on conferences in Colorado, and I invited her to many. talk to her about all kinds of things. She's written some fantastic books. Linda Moulton Howe. She's on a lot of radio shows. Linda, I don't understand this. Linda has the ability to get all kinds of people to call her and tell her all kinds of amazing things. She does. I don't get anybody calling me and telling me amazing things. Occasionally I have, but not as often as they call Linda. Linda had a couple of informants tell her about the Alaska Black Triangle. Yeah. Well, it supposedly is larger than the Pyramid of Cheops. And it's buried in a mountain. Now, buried is a bad word, but it's inside of a mountain in Denali National Park. And the inside of the mountain is supposedly hollowed out. The top of the pyramid is supposedly 150 feet below the top of the inside of the mountain. Imagine standing way back and looking at this 550-foot tall pyramid inside this hollowed out mountain and blow your mind. It's all black. The theory was from the informants that it's some type of ancient generator that is possibly still functioning. Well, Dave, that's very neat. Yeah. Now, the inside of this mountain is supposedly accessed by a camouflaged elevator. Now, there were two rumors. One rumor had it discovered in 1949, and the most recent one had it discovered in 1992. Now, there was supposedly an atomic bomb blast in Asia. And the USGS here in the United States decided to do a seismic study of Denali and the mountains. And during their seismic study of waves and movement, and they found, supposedly, this pyramid inside this mountain. Now, Linda supposedly had a military whistleblower come forward and explain this. Other witnesses were a young boy flew with his dad when he was just a kid, and his dad was unloading supplies at this elevator to the people that worked inside the mountain. And the boy said, I can remember, we're in the middle of nowhere on the side of this mountain, and all of a sudden this elevator comes out of the ground and people carry the stuff and go in and we leave. Alaska has large numbers of missing and crashed aircraft. That's a fact. And allegedly a large number of missing people scattered throughout the state. And this state has sightings of almost every conceivable cryptid in the world. The only one I haven't heard of is a dinosaur in Alaska, and somebody probably has. And Alaska is also the location of HAARP. Now, if you don't know what HAARP is, look it up. HAARP. And it is a weather manipulation supposed program ran by our government in Alaska. Now, that's an argumentative point, but it's there. Alaska has a lot of unusual stuff. Now, when Angie and I were there on the Alaska Bigfoot cruise this summer, one thing you start to realize is that there is so much water, islands, fish, beauty. It's mind-boggling. I could sit there on the railing of our ship all day as we cruise through these islands and just watch. If you have not gone to Alaska, you have to put that on your bucket list. Cruises are not that expensive. You can get them for like $600 to Alaska, really. So, anyhow, that's the setup for the story. And you got to have the setup to know the story. Now, this story is about a good man. His name was Nathan Campbell. Nathan was 40 years old, and he's reported missing June 13th, 2020 in Denali National Park. Now, Dave, what's he doing at Denali? Well, he flew into... Slow down, Dave. Nathan has a wife named Vanessa, and they have 4 boys. Nathan was raised part-time in Hawaii. He lived in Alaska for many years. He had a hunting license in Alaska for many years, and he was an outdoorsman. One of his last jobs before this incident happened is he was a butcher at Costco, and he had his real estate license. He was a hard worker. Well, at the beginning of 2020, he started to plan out a multi-month trip to the outskirts of Denali in this location called Carey Lake. Carey Lake. So Carey Lake, these are the high mountain areas. Mount Foraker, Foraker is right there. Denali View North, Hurricane Gulch Bridge, McKinley River. There's Carey Lake. Now, during my research on this story, I went back in the archives and I looked up Nathan. I've got to tell you that I'm impressed with Nathan and Vanessa. Here's why. I think it was 2011. There was an article in the Anchorage Daily, and it's about their library having questionable books in it. Offensive books exposing young kids to sexuality. And you know what? Nathan and Vanessa stood up to protect kids and said, this is inappropriate. They put it in the paper. Right out there. I like these people. You know why? Because they're concerned about their kids. I like that. First job of a parent, defend the children. Now, part of Nathan's preparation for this trip is he got a Garmin InReach satellite unit, about the size of a small cell phone. And if you pay a monthly fee, you can use this to text loved ones at the other end. It goes from this unit to a satellite, from a satellite down to a tower and onto your friends. And that's how he was going to keep up. He also had a GPS coordinates unit that he could carry with, that he could notify people where he was at as well, in case one failed. And that Garmin also had an emergency locator beacon. If something went bad, he could hit it, and boom, the whole world, or whoever would know that he needs help. So late May of 2020, Nathan contacts a pilot named Jason Sturgis, who had an air taxi. And he said, I need to contract with you to take me and my supplies from Talkeetna to Carey Lake. That's at the far northwest portion of Denali National Park. Well, right away, Jason looks at a map and goes, I've never flown anybody in there. That's out in the middle of nowhere. Hardly anybody would ever go out there. He goes, yeah, I know. I just want to go there. Put me on the lake and I'll unload. He goes, okay, so when you want to book your return trip? And he goes, I don't want to book that right now. Okay, that's, in Jason's world, as a pilot, that's odd. Because you always want to book your trip out to make sure that something doesn't happen. What if you break your Garmin unit, let's say? A real possibility, and you can't contact anybody, and you don't have a return flight booked, you're in trouble, pal. But he didn't do it. So the day came. Jason shows up in Talkeetna. They load the plane and they fly off. And they're heading towards Carrie Lake. Now, Nathan brought fishing gear, which is good. He brought a large backpack and several large plastic bins of supplies. Tent, food, cooking gear, etc. Now, during the flight, Jason said that Nathan was a pretty quiet guy. Wasn't very boisterous. Man, a few words. But he kept asking him, this is a really remote area. What are you doing out here? There's a lot of better areas to fish and blah, blah, blah. And Jason said finally, Nathan opened up a bit and surprised him. He said, I'm going to go find the Black Pyramid. Jason says he was a little surprised. He'd heard about it, but didn't know a lot about it. And Nathan went on to say that this was his own kind of Indiana Jones adventure. So stop right there. Nathan was 40 when this happened. 40 years old, you're young, you're healthy, adventurous. I gotta tell you, some of you may think I'm odd, but you know what? This is something I would have done when I was younger. I wouldn't have stayed for many months, like 2 or 3 months, if I was like Nathan was planning, because Alaska, even in the summer, can get brutally hard to live in. It can rain, it can snow, get very cold. You got grizzly bears out there. I mean, I'd do it, but I'd probably do it for 10 days. I'm just being honest with you. I would do it, and I would do it for 10 days. I'd probably try to take one of my friends with me too, and make it into some fun. Maybe search for the pyramid one day and fish the next. I love fishing. And apparently Nathan did too. That's why I like him. So Nathan lands the plane. They unload all the supplies. And Nathan knew that the closest town was Lake Minchimina. It was a solid, brutal 1-week hike at best through some horrific conditions. Town only had 30 people, and that's even if you could find it by hiking it. So he was way out there. No roads near there. In fact, there's only one road that's inside of Denali National Park. Now you can get a special permit sometimes to drive other roads, but there's only one public road. Once you drive in, then you got to take shuttles and buses and things. So he's way out there. Now he gets there near the end of May. It wasn't fully explained how often he was communicating with Vanessa or what their agreement was on communication. But in mid-June, Vanessa contacts Jason Sturgis, the air taxi operator, and says she hadn't heard from Nathan in a while and was concerned. Well, Nathan asked her for the last Garmin coordinates that she had for him. And she gave them to him, and Jason looked them up, and they were 5 miles from Carrie Lake. Those coordinates have never become public, so I can't tell you exactly where they were. Now, there are some coordinates that relate to the Black Pyramid that show it 2 to 3 miles from Carrie Lake. I don't know if those are correct, because I've seen other coordinates that are far different. But apparently Nathan was working off those coordinates that are near Carrie Lake. Well, Jason Sturgis looked at those coordinates and said, there's no place for me to land my plane anywhere near those coordinates. So you need to contact a helicopter service that can land almost anywhere. Well, Jason said that was the last time he talked to the wife for a long time and figured that somebody went out to check on him. Well, eventually several private friends initiated a search and also prompted eventually to get National Park Service to go out there in September of 2020. The NPS supposedly landed at the site at Kari Lake and found cached supplies at the lake. 3 miles from Kari Lake, they found Nathan's tent that had been collapsed. That's weird. I'm just telling you right now, that's weird. Why is that weird? If you've been a long-time follower of me, you know that's weird. First of all, they hadn't had any snow. And normally a tent will hold up pretty well. But several people, including ones I've known in Alaska to disappear, their tents have been compressed somehow. Well, that was 3 miles from the lake. They never mentioned going to that place where the GPS coordinates of where it was last at, but I'm sure they did. I mean, that would make only sense. They also found fishing supplies, fishing gear, but they didn't find Nathan. NPS said they did a 1-day ground search and then put a plane up and a helicopter up for 2 days flying around the area. Didn't find anything else. Now, let me tell you right now, this kind of gets me really mad. I don't know the reason why it took so long to get GPS out to Kari Lake to search. I don't know if there was a communication problem between the wife and them, or it's all been very unclear. But that's essentially 75 days with no word on Nathan between the time his last coordinates came out and NPS got there. In all of these stories, I look for sites that may have a contact point, and I did. And I found a phone number for Vanessa in Alaska. I called her. The phone was disconnected. I only found one phone number. There's a lot of things about this story that are unclear and bother me. NPS's National Park Service search for 1 day is ridiculous. I don't care if he's been missing 75 days or 100 days. If that's the first day you're there, you got to give it 3 or 4 days on the ground at minimum. It's like they didn't even want to look. And then I'm interested in what was the agreement between Vanessa and Nathan about how often he'd communicate? And then what were the communications like up until the point it stopped? NPS said that when they went into his tent, they found his diary. And they said that it appeared that rodents had been chewing on some of the pages, but they could read. And the diary stopped at about June 13th. And they never said specifically what was in it, other than they said it reflected somebody living in the wild, living off the land, and what life was like. Now, if there was some big revelation, hey, I found the black triangle, do you think NPS would tell us? I don't think so. And why not release that diary back to the family? I hope they did. And if they did, then I'd be interested from Vanessa what it says. Now remember, I've told you this before. GPS coordinates. If that GPS got dropped on the ground, let's say, and Vanessa got them, then 3 or 4 of us should be able to find that unit if it's still sitting. There's no reason why it shouldn't be still sitting there. Because by searching, say, a 50 square foot area, you should find it within those coordinates. No word that it was ever found. So that's Nathan's disappearance. A lot of questions, not a lot of answers. But let's remember why he was there. Searching for a secret black triangle operated by our government in an underground, hollowed out mountain. There was a site that I read about this that said that there were 3 retired Special Forces soldiers that were going to go in 2021 to Kerry Lake and see if they could find Nathan. Obviously, if they would have found him, then his NABS name would be removed and his Alaska law enforcement site would be down that he's missing. So I'm sure they didn't find him, but it's interesting that they went there. But noting how our government can do bad things to good people, who knows what really happened here. I pray that his family gets some answers, and I hope those answers come from people like you and me that are willing to go back in there and search hard for him, because it's apparent that the Park Service won't. I thank you for being here. And if you know of a story of a missing person in your area, you write to me and you tell me. Just write to missing411, missing, and then the number 4, number 1 at yahoo.com. Send it to me. Obviously, they couldn't track him. There were no tracks leaving the site. All of a sudden he disappears with the GPS coordinates and people always ask me, Dave, do people with locator beacons disappear? Here's one right here. Strange circumstances. He never pushed the emergency beacon. So what happened? Right? Please share this video on your social media. It will help us. And if you still need a birthday or a Christmas present, order a couple books in the hat. All right? Thank you very much. And remember, it never hurts to be kind to people. Every day I wake up and I go downstairs and I give Huck a big hug, scratch her belly, let her know I love her. Now, you don't go to the store and do that to the clerk, but tell the clerks how much you appreciate them. Tell them when they're doing a good job. Do something thoughtful. You take care. Paulides out.